let's touch on those European ties, because some of them are favourable and some of them, well, maybe not so.
Yeah, Pats, right. Let's just get it out there. Really appreciate that one. Yeah, look, Shamrock Rovers were drawn to Hibernians FC of Malta in the fourth qualification round for the Champions League. The fourth leg being the 5th of July in Tallaght Stadium, the second leg being the 12th of July in Malta.
Great
Hibernians,
opportunity, isn't it? It's
yeah,
like
look,
you're not saying you're not. You have to realise that there's good teams out there, and just because they're from Malta it means nothing. But in the draw, when you looked at the draw, it's a great draw for them.
it could have been much worse. Really, really could. Like, Hibernia won the most recent Malta Premier League. That was a 13 title. Um, Now they did I think it was the last year they reached the third qualification rounds in the Conference League. I think it was actually Riga that knocked them out. So they got far enough. Fucking fly. They got far enough in the Europa Conference League last year. But yeah, I really do think if you look at the potential that Shamrock Rovers could have got, this is definitely a favourable enough one for them. And I think you'd fancy them to get through to the next round. Where
And
they could
you
either
can correct me if I'm wrong. If they get through this, they're guaranteed 1.3 million.
Yeah, so they have 800,000 guaranteed already, and potential to make more. We've seen it last year, and this year they're going to have the same advantage of the championship, Pat, because they won the league. They get if they do get beaten here by Hibernian, they get to drop down to the Europa Conference League. Like last year, they made 1.5 million over both the Champions League and the Europa Conference League,
Yeah.
which eye-watering amount of money to make at this level of football.
And when you look at what happened with Gavin Bazunu going to Southampton, and they're
Yeah.
claiming 3 million off that, this is the sort of thing that's going to develop the Premier League in Ireland, or the Premier Division in Ireland, on a full-time basis. These are the things that have to happen. You have to win your games in Europe. You have to sell those players on and make sure that in a business-like manner that you have the right clauses in when they go across to England, when they go across to Italy, when they go into Belgium, or wherever it is. And Shamrock Rovers seem to be doing that nicely.
Yeah, like that time is gone, Roy. We were happy for young lads just going to get trials across the water. We have to be savvy about the business deals to go through. We really do.
There can be no more Seamus Colemans.
No, there can't be. That's an absolute steal looking back now, isn't it? You know, we even seen young lads like it's England isn't a viable option anymore because of the Brexit thing. You know, if young lads want to go, they're going into these high end series like Heffernan gone into AC Milan, absolutely brilliant for him. We're seeing lads go to League One clubs, Serie A clubs, but we have to be smart with how we do it and add in the sell on clause. When Matt Doherty went from Wolves to Tottenham, how long was he at Wolves? It was about nearly 8 years, so was it? And even at that stage, when he left Bohemians, there was a sell-on clause injected into that. So even though it was really 10 years down the line, that bit of extra money filtered back into Bohemians because they
Absolutely,
were
yeah.
smart enough to add that in. And yeah, we just can't be naive with things like that anymore. And we were for the longest time, even in terms of going for grants and things like that. We talked about the grants that were added a couple of months ago now. But these are all relatively new things that League of Ireland clubs are acting on, and they should have been doing it years in advance. You know, it's not that difficult to do. It's just getting the right people in the clubs that have that bit of sense and have that bit of business savvy about them to be able to point out and say, well, look, we're entitled to this. We can go apply for this grant. Or, this young lad is good enough. Even though you sell him to a championship club, he could go into the Premier League. So let's add in a sell-on clause. It's not just wishing them well and waving them off, like you said, like a Seamus Coleman, which now it's an absolutely, you can imagine what sort of money they could have got for him if,
Unbelievable.
international appearances
Yeah.
or whatever it may be. We really do. It's good to see because, it is something that we're starting to see in the League of Ireland, that we're getting a bit more sense. And, like, without going off on a tangent, when James Brown, miss you, James, really miss you here, the big kick off, mate, love you. When he went off to Blackburn Rovers and it was on a trial basis and it was with under 23s, I thought that was absolutely nonsense. We're looking at a guy that was for well, anyone that listens to the show even for 10 seconds last year, knowing that we thought he was, especially myself, thought he was one of the best full back, probably one of the better player in the league last season. And the fact that Blackburn wouldn't just come in with in a, like you would at any other club with a bid, it had to be on a trial basis under 23s. It was blatantly disrespectful. And I think it was mental that was even coming to pass at this stage on. But yeah, it's great to see that these things are starting to come in as a regular fixture to League of Ireland football.
Okay, Europa Conference League draws.
Yeah, so Sligo Rovers, they're barely going to leave Ireland, considering for it's a European competition.
In both rounds.
In both rounds, drawn against Bala Town of Wales in the first qualification round. Again, the first leg's going to be on the 7th of July in Wales. Actually, before on that one, Roy, did you see there's a bit of controversy surrounding away tickets? Sligo are really fighting to get an away allocation for this game. It's looking not increasingly unlikely.
Why is
It's
that?
looking unlikely. Yeah, it could be in terms of when he was looking up the grounds for Bala, there was given two different options. One was 20 minutes outside of Bala town itself. The other was in Real, the town in Wales. So there seemed to be a bit of a mix-up with the stadiums. Both of them are really low capacity as well. So maybe that has an effect to do with it. But yeah, absolutely shocking. Even though you could go over and buy tickets for the home end, there should be an away allocation because there's going to be travelling supporters. Even though Bala, it's a difficult place to get to, but it's still in Wales, you can still get the boat over, fly into like Liverpool and work your way down, whatever you want to do. Yeah, there's just when I mentioned that there. Anyway, the second leg is going to be in the 14th of July. That's going to be in the showgrounds. And if they're successful, their future opponent is going to be all the way in Scotland. So they're drawn against Motherwell in the second qualification round. Yeah, it's probably further away trips in Ireland, isn't there?
That's it. They can get the boat. They don't even have to worry about a plane there.
No. It's like the Waterford's probably a longer journey.
Yeah, and the thing is that those games are both winnable games. Like Motherwell aren't blown the Scottish League away or anything like that. Decent side, and Ross Tierney's there, and you've watched them a couple of times, and yeah, decent side. But if Sligo are at their best, anything can happen, and we've seen that from all sorts of European adventures from Irish teams throughout the years. So we'd be interested there. Derry Pats.
And just on the Sligo before we move on, and they'll want to really avenge last year. They were knocked out in the fourth qualification round against FH in Iceland. And that seemed like a winnable tie.
It's nearly an embarrassment now for Irish teams to go out in the first round, isn't it? Because there's a little bit more of an expectation on our teams because of what Dundalk did, of what Shamrock Rovers did. You're kind of looking at these teams and other teams who have got through their first round games. You're nearly expecting them to get through the first round.
I think especially in the Europa Conference League as well, Roy, when this was announced, this is something that we even talked about in the show in the past, was it'll be a great opportunity. It's even more likely that we'll get one, maybe even two Irish sides in the group stages. And I think it is. And look, Sligo have struggled this season in terms of the league. I personally think they are where they are. They're a mid-table side with the squad that they have. Again, ancient history now at this stage. Thought it was mental that they let go of Liam Buckley. But yeah, a really good opportunity for Sligo Rovers to advance here and actually make some European money this year. I think it's 250,000 if they advance past the first qualification round. So it'd be great for them to get that money in. Now, Derry City, bit of a trickier aspect to look at, isn't it? Getting drawn against Riga FC from Latvia in the first qualification rounds. Yeah, first legs the 7th of July again. That's in Derry. Second leg 14th of July. That's going to be in Riga itself. This is a Riga side that got to like Shamrock Rovers last year. They got to the playoffs of the Europa Conference League, but were eventually beaten by Lincoln Red Imps of Gibraltar. So good European pedigree last year. I think it's going to be a difficult one for Derry. I think if we're looking at the draws that were made on the Tuesday with the Shamrock Rovers, Sligo and Derry City, I think Derry definitely got the most difficult.
They got the most difficult, but if there's any team, this Derry City side, if they can catch the form that they did at the start of the season, there's no reason why. And if Rory Higgins puts a plan together, there's no reason why they couldn't turn Riga.
Yeah, it's not a mountain to climb. It's a tricky tie.
Yeah.
It's not it again definitely could have been worse. I think there was one or two. I've got the top of my head who was in the potential, but there was one or two. I think there was a Polish team in particular that really want to avoid it. Disappointed not to get the Crusaders. That would have been an interesting tie. I think Derry City would have battered Crusaders. To be honest, I'd fancy most League of Ireland sides against a team up in the Northern Ireland Premier Division. So yeah, difficult tie, but no, not impossible to do, but it will be tricky for them.
Pats are in the second round.
Yeah, you're waiting for making it sweat the most and making it the most awkward, you know? Like, I was saying on the live show that we could have played Slavia Prague from a footballing aspect. Stay away from that, because you would have got bounced off.
Yeah.
But from being a bit of a selfish, you know, mid-20s, I want to go to Prague, me mates. But now we still have to wait that little bit extra. We're going to play the winners of FC... I knew I'd bleeding struggle with this one. FC Svintel. Is that one? FC Svintel?
Go with that.
We'll go with Moldova. I wouldn't mind. I was sitting here before we go. I go, Svintel.
Yeah.
Bright lights, they still get you. Or NS Mora of Slovenia. So the winner of that tie, that's the St. Pat's will play the 24th of July. Fourth game being Dublin. And then the 28th of July. Location is obviously to be confirmed. So you want to avoid Mora. Obviously, NS Mora, they look like that they will come out top if you're looking at the both of these sides, that they come out top in this draw. They got to the group stages last year, famously beat Tottenham Hotspur 2-1 in the group stages last season. I think if Pats are coming against the Moldova sides, you'd be a little more enthusiastic with them coming out with a result. But yeah, it's going to be a tricky one for Pats themselves, and Derry City definitely have the more trickier out of every League of Ireland team. But who knows? You never know. Just a shame that the UEFA insisted on making it the most awkward 1 week in advance any Pats fan is going to have to make the trip to either Moldova or Slovenia. But you know, that's just me getting that up, just a little rant off my chest there. I just wanted to go away on the piss of me mates, that's what I'm saying. So obviously, yeah, any Pats fans listening in, the club itself advised against making any travel arrangements, which would be mental to do it anyway, before things are confirmed. So
absolutely,
best of luck to all of them. I really do. It's while I think English fans get slated for, you know, wanting English teams to do well in, you know, European competitions, I think Irish fans, we have to be looking at, no matter who you support, you know, St. Pat's, obviously you always want to see Shamrock Rovers getting beaten, but when it comes to European games, you have to be rooting for every League of Ireland club, because
it gives the league an easier draw then as well. Then if your team gets in there, so it just makes sense to be rooting for your Irish team, no matter how much of a local threat they are to you.
Yeah.